Blog Talk Radio.
Beheading the Hydra of tyranny with the sword of truth. What is truth? How about not lies? Join Bazra, Parsons and David Lopez on the Truth Will Overcome Tyranny live podcast at 5 p.m. PST on Saturdays on blogtalkradio.com/the NWO will fail to discuss the big issues that the corporate media don't want to know about. That's blogtalkradio.com/the NWO will fail. Also check out our website at truthwillovercometyranny.com because only truth can overcome tyranny.
What we got to say, fight the power. What we got to say, fight the power. Come on.
Illuminati Exposed Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, folks. Good morning, depending on where you are. This is David Lopez, and we've got Bazra Parsons with us here.
Good morning, folks.
And this is Truth Will Overcome Tyranny. You can find us at www.truthwillovercometyranny.com. And we're here on the Illuminati Exposed radio channel, which can be found at, you probably found it already, blogtalkradio.com/the NWO will fail. And you can join them on Facebook, facebook.com/the NWO will fail. They're working on a website. We've got a Facebook page, /truthwillovercometyranny.com, with facebook.com in front, of course. And we're live and direct today. And the topic of the show is the Emperor Wears No Clothes, Climate Change Exposed. And before we go into that, we just want to, we've basically done an interview a couple of days ago with a man named Andrew Snowden. That's not Edward Snowden, not the whistleblower, but
other Snowden.
The other Snowden, who resides in Victoria, Australia, and he basically had just gotten out of a mental institution, 6-day forced stay in a mental hospital as a result of basically, a police vendetta. And
he assaulted a police car, though, David.
Oh, that's right. He put his hands on a police car, and that snowballed. That turned into. I did that before in the interview. What a bit of a pun there, but anyway.
You did too. Yeah.
Yeah, I did it again. So anyway, it's an intriguing interview because the sequence of events and everything is incredible, and the how do I put this? The excessive there's a real abuse of the Mental Health Act, and the Mental Health Act it gives the government a lot of power to forcibly treat people and put them in a mental institution, not let them leave, purely based on a professional opinion, basically, without any real evidence. They can put you in there. So it's scary stuff. Very Soviet-esque the way this law is being used, the Mental Health Act, and it really does need to be abolished. The whole act is just about forcing treatment on people.
Well, there's a whole lot of acts that really should be abolished by the look of things, David. Really, I mean, look at the.
To be honest,
Marijuana Tax Act or whatever the hell it is that drives stinking prohibition in this country and others these days, whatever, untreaty or whatever the hell it is that's got this mental thing still going in the 21st century.
Yeah, it's old style, it's antiquated stuff. You'd think in this day and age that people would at least have the right not to be forced into a mental institution against their will, leaving out...
Well, especially if they're not doing anything to harm anyone else or anything, really.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I was going to say, is basically if you're not out, smashing stuff and stabbing people as a result of your mental illness, then I don't see why people should be forced against their will to get government treatment. I mean, it's terrible stuff. Basically, you've got a lot of what amounts to political prisoners in mental institutions, because this is all government-driven stuff. It's not like it's got to do with private. It's basically people not having behaving the right way according to the government. They set the criteria, and their people are making the decisions as to whether people get incarcerated or not and treated in hospital.
And then they use all sorts of secrecy clauses and sophistry, like, we can't talk about individual cases and all this kind of shit to make it more Soviet-esque, really.
Yeah. I mean, you don't. It seems to turn out that if you don't like the government, that seems to qualify as well. If you don't
I mean, you only have to look at that article that went flying around in the last 2 days or so about the American government wants to classify 9/11 researchers as potential terrorists.
Yeah, and I guess having a mental illness too. Just diagnose them with that while you're at it.
Exactly, that's precisely the angle from which they'd approach it.
And that's how it worked in the Soviet Union. So, basic and Nazi Germany and any other totalitarian collectivist regime. So the interview you can actually find on truthwillovercometyranny.com right now. It's about an hour 40 minutes, and it's quite a journey. The whole story is intriguing, and there's a couple of chuckles there too, which is good. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's pretty heavy stuff. Just how much force people who call themselves government seem to feel that they have over people, despite self-evident human rights, like not being. You shouldn't be allowed to imprison people. For political or religious reasons, treat them for mental health, and call something an illness if they hold a particular philosophy.
That's not an illness; that's an opinion.
Yeah,
and like bums, we've all got them.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, one person's opinion shouldn't hold the key to your freedom or not. Certainly not a mental health worker who just looks you up and down and gives you a very brief assessment. He got a 2-minute assessment. It was basically based on 2 minutes of a professional asking him some questions, and then
not many by the sound of it as well.
Took the so-called precautionary measure of keeping him in over the weekend, and he didn't get properly assessed until after the weekend, and they still held him for a little while. It was 6 days all up. So yeah, check that out.
But sorry, Dave, just before you go on, we're still having some issues with the player on our website.
Oh yeah, that's right. So you want to you want to hit the download link. It'll open it up in a new page if you want, and you can play it through, say, QuickTime or something in your browser.
Or you can download it, which would be great to do as well anyway.
Exactly. You can just download it and have a copy on your hard drive to play whenever you like. You can rerun it to your heart's content. But so onto the climate change thing. Now, there's a few threads here, but I think the first thing to look at is all of the admissions that are coming out from the IPCC, the the International
Intercontinental Panel on Climate Change, or something like that. Some glorious title like that.
The IPCC. So they're part of the United Nations, and it's pretty much the nerve center of climate change, politics and science. And they've come out and basically said, okay, we admit it, we've had no warming for 16 odd years, something like that, since 1998. So, and they're basically saying that it doesn't look like catastrophic warming is just around the corner, as we've been saying all this time. And our climate models, our computer models, haven't matched up with reality.
I wonder how much Australian governments, particularly of the Gillard and Rudd kind, spent on those models. By the way, David, during their reign.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, so much money has gone into climate change research. It became a bit ridiculous. So people in the science sector.
You only needed to put climate change in your submission, and you get the tick.
Well, that's right. That's right. So it tended to come down to if I had much hope of getting any funding, and it'd have to be on climate change and that sort of thing, and that's granted through government to CSIRO and in Australia and
through the NGOs, David, like back to the Norman Dodd, the Reece Commission report about the tax-exempt commissions back then. Nothing's changed since then. Those same tax-exempt corporations or whatever, like the Rockefellers and so forth, are still massive on the world stage. Same old story, and just another big hype, and hell, it was pretty full on, and a lot of people, the education went through the education system down to primary school level. It still is, David. It's still entrenched in that. Yeah. So, I mean, what's new in Australia is that we had a climate change commission. We've had panel headed by Tim Flannery. The new government, Liberal Party, took power, and one of the first things they've done is dismantle the whole department. The whole department, on climate change. And put Tim Flannery out on his $180,000 ass. That's right. Who has been heavily, getting in front. It's just been getting in front of the media over and over again, and telling us that the sky's falling in, now he's lost his job and all the rest. It's an interesting development. It doesn't mean it's all gone away, though. I mean, it certainly looks positive from the point of view of climate skepticism and people not wanting reversing a epoxy carbon tax and maybe things like that. But there's going to be so much deception otherwise. I mean, they're still not even talking about Project Cloverleaf or the aerosol spraying that's just so widespread over this country. It's unbelievable that to have no conversation about that in the public forum at all is just fucking disgusting. Yeah, and let's not forget that Tony Abbott's wife is a Rothschild banker. I made the quip during the week, or just after he won the election, that he's been on remote control since his honeymoon. Yeah, so Tony Abbott's the new Australian Prime Minister, for those that don't know out there. By the way, we've got the phones open. The number's 646-595-4861. And you can also chat with us. That's for American and Canadian listeners. That's right. If you're international or would rather not use a phone line, you can Skype in from the show page. There's a Skype button next to the phone number on the show page. So, is someone already there? Did you say that? He dropped off shortly after we started the show. Actually, someone. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. You want to call back at all, mate?
Yeah. Please, we'd like to discuss
These
the
matters.
topic with other people. Yeah, get some other perspectives. But so it's an interesting time that we're in. Okay, obviously, and this is the thing. I hear people say whatever about climate change. We need to fix the environment, and that's going to need massive intervention from government. And
I'm not arguing with that. I've been saying that for bloody 20 years. I owned the trademark in this country for endangered species in 1980s. I'm very much an environmentalist and love this country at heart. But to have these sort of conversations without including chemtrails and without including all the geoengineering in general is just banal.
Yeah, and that's right. So it's not like, sure there's people out there that are sceptical of the climate change science, the official, the so-called consensus and that kind of thing. And they might be, I don't know, pro-oil, or they might be, they may have a conflict of interest in climate change and what that, how that's dealt with and whether it's real or not and things like that. Sure, but on the other side, you've got pretty much, government and an intelligentsia, academia.
A well-paid intelligentsia.
Well-paid,
not like me and you, an unpaid intelligentsia.
Yeah,
basically, yeah.
Who instinctively know what side of the bread their butter's on, what side their bread is buttered on, and it's definitely not to be trusted. And another big thing to think about is computer modelling. Nature is extremely complicated, and trying to simulate natural occurrences. Especially something as chaotic and hard to predict as the weather and the atmosphere. If you can't boil that down to a model and then get some bird's eye view into the future, 20, 50 to 100 years. They can't seem to get it right on a day-to-day basis. So.
Yes, whilst on that topic, I'll just butt in there for a second, David, and ask listeners to, in their spare time, do an internet search for the word ClimateGate.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there's been a couple of scandals where IPCC scientists have, had their emails hacked and then been sort of dumped online for everyone to see. And what's there is pretty disturbing. Some obvious collusion about fixing the science, hiding the downward trend in temperature, which basically to hide mistakes.
And that their models were just pumped up bullshit.
Yeah, and also talking about how to, screw skeptics on the peer review process.
Yes, very important. Yeah,
and
then the mighty Wurlitz turns all that around into a scandal about someone stole some emails. It's not right to steal emails, Gee, they were naughty for stealing those emails. Do you reckon it was good about them stealing them emails? You know what? It was bad of them stealing them emails. Never mentioning one fucking second what was on them.
Well, in the same logic, Bradley Manning was bad for releasing the video, So
precisely. Yeah, exactly.
Collateral murder video or whatever. He needs to go away for 30 years. Let's not focus on the bad things that the military did. So that's the game, and the media's really marching it out there, telling us and they give some airtime to the skeptics, but they really make them out to be pretty crazy, and they'll make funny faces at them and make them out to be really question their integrity. Of course.
Well, I mean, even the really quite well appreciated documentary series by Jesse Ventura, you got to question, he goes out and calls the thing conspiracy theory, the very term which demonizes conspiracy researchers from the outset and was selected by Hollywood and the powers that be to be that term, to demonize anyone with a contradictory point of view to the government.
Yeah. So, you had people on the ABC on I think it was called some political opinion panel show on the ABC in Australia, where basically calling for people who questioned climate science to be not get any airtime for a start.
They haven't had much, that's for sure.
They haven't had much, and otherwise saying that they have a mental illness and they should go get some treatment and all this kind of stuff. So this is all classic propaganda. Calling your opposition mentally ill and all that kind of stuff, and coming from a state-funded and run media outlet, the taxpayer funded and all the rest, that really isn't on. You can't be saying, we're not going to let you debate this, and we're not going to let you question the science. In fact, we think
they do that, David, by running shows like Q&A, pretend question and answer sessions.
Yeah, that one's pretty contrived as well, and it's
and the debates with the leaders that have wire plugs in their ears,
Yeah. So this is the thing. Okay, the solution to our climate woes, according to government, is surprise, a new tax. A tax on the use of a tax on carbon production.
Haven't they swapped to upping the GST overnight or something in the last couple of days? David, did you note that?
No, I've missed that.
Yeah, overnight. Oh, you were too busy with the site and all those other things that you're uploading that. Yeah, I think there's some talk at least. I can't verify this. Probably the pundits will be doing that on the insiders, Barack, Arthurby and so forth today. But yeah, they're talking about upping the GST.
So abolish the carbon tax and then up the GST. GST is the...
Bait and switch.
Yeah, absolutely. Why does that not surprise me? GST, folks, for those in America and Britain and stuff, it's General Services, Goods and Services Tax. So it's like a VAT, a value-added tax. That was brought in was it 96 by... No, it was later than that, 99 or something. It's the same thing as a carbon. They brought it in the same way as a carbon tax. The Liberals are campaigning and saying, there will be no GST, and then brought it in anyway and called it a mandate when they won the election on the basis of saying that they weren't going to do it. And same thing happened with the carbon tax here in Australia. Julia Gillard campaigned on the promise not to bring in a carbon tax, and that's exactly what she did as soon as she got in. And funnily enough, Kevin Rudd was saying, when he got rid of Julia Gillard, there's another leadership spill. We've had three prime ministers in 75 days. Kevin Rudd says, I'm going to abolish the carbon tax. Aren't I great? And what he actually did was shorten the period of time that they'd agreed to switch from a carbon tax to a carbon trading scheme, a market trading scheme. So you know,
sophistry, isn't it, mate?
yeah. So you're supposed to feel a bit better. Oh, good, he's going to get rid of the carbon tax. Oh, he's not really. He's going to turn it into a Ponzi scheme, a law-driven economic bubble. So, but now it seems that Abbott claims he's going to abolish the carbon tax forthwith. Again, you know, I don't know if this means abolishing or converting into, you know, a different, you know, from a direct tax to a stock exchange style trading mechanism, which, you know, if his wife's a Rothschild banker, I don't see why that wouldn't happen. That seemed to be the plan the whole time.
That's who's slated to take all the cash from the carbon credits, is it not?
Oh yeah. They're the ones who stand to. They're all set up to run this exchange, this market-based exchange, supposedly. So yeah, they have a whole lot to gain. They get a cut of everyone's action in this legally enforced market that they've created.
Okay, that's a nice time to segue into the title of our broadcast today. That is "The Emperor Has No Clothes," which is a tip of the hat to the late great Jack Herrera, who did the cutting-edge research into cannabis that is now mushrooming, for want of a better word, into the vast field of new sciences, including building materials and medicine and a whole range of other things. In fact, can be the billion-dollar crop, the name of a very good Australian movie about cannabis that was prophesied several years ago and has been talked about for so long, but been held back by conflicting interests of the usual suspects.
Yeah, so this is the thing that I wanted to link this whole climate change thing to hemp, okay? Because climate change, the whole concept of it and the politicization of it came out of the Club of Rome in the 70s, I believe, and the Club of Rome is an elitist think tank. And they were pretty much purposed with the task of coming up with ways to bring world government to the world, to destroy national sovereignty and replace it with a global form of government, you know, driven through the UN and that sort of stuff. They've got a website and they've got documents there basically expressing, you know, humanity as something like a virus that needs to be, you know, curbed and population
kept
reduced.
In check.
Yeah, kept in check, and basically, you know, they state humanity as being the enemy of itself and the planet.
Yeah, what the story there was, David, was that there was some meeting, and these elitists were very concerned that at some stage humanity might wise up to the fact that wars are kind of knobby and only benefit a few.
Yeah.
And so they were trying to figure a way to control all these people and population in general by something other than war. Yeah.
War starts to become difficult to keep going when you have lots of people who don't want to go to war anymore and don't actually believe in the cause.
And that has some critical thinking capacities, like has been boosted, like Lawnmower Man effect via the internet.
Yeah, and you know, with the global Soviet, you know, when achieving a world government, you know, that's supposedly going to bring peace and all that, but you know, peace comes at the when everybody who opposes them is dead or well and truly under control. So anyway, take a look at the Club of Rome. That's the progenesis, the you know, where all this climate change politics came from.
I think the book was called The First Global Revolution, David, and it was published around 1972.
Yep. And then you basically had a whole bunch of treaties signed around the world, signing on to Agenda 21, United Nations Agenda 21, which is the blueprint for
ecological terror, I would call it.
Yeah, it's basically a communist doctrine, to put it bluntly. And no land ownership. People are managed. Everyone's a renter. We're all corralled into compact cities, and
only the CEOs and the filthy rich have any form of transport, private transport, etc.
Yeah. There's a video on YouTube called Plandopolis. And if you search for Plandopolis on YouTube, there's like this animated sort of cutesy vision of the future, and no one eats meat, and or very rarely, and only very rich people have cars, and everyone carpools, and pretty much by law, and they have their
There's
job.
a lot of social programming there. Hey, David, it sounds very much like Soylent Green as well. That's very dystopian in its entirety.
Yeah. So that's the vision, and it's not it's not real friendly to us humans, and this this is where the hemp thing comes in. We did the episode last week about hemp and how it can save the world. It really is a big solution to a lot of the environmentalist concerns. We get off our reliance on fossil fuels.
It grows so quickly. You don't need to grow trees that take 20 or 150 or whatever years to get to a certain size. These things are grown to maturity in the same year.
Biodegradable plastic, it goes on, and we covered a lot of it last week, so you should check out last week's episode for more on that. But where it fits into this climate change thing is that climate change is a farce, and we need to come to terms with that. We're calling bullshit on that. And the science is, the real data, the actual temperature measurements, ocean acidity and measurements and things like that, temperature, just don't line up with what the IPCC and everyone below them, the so-called consensus, which isn't even a consensus, that's a lie.
No, there's articles talking about people, scientists suing Allegory, the Al Gore, etc.
Yeah. So basically, we've been flat out lied to. The science has been fabricated to a great extent, and so they're trying to shut down debate and all of that. In the meantime, they're having to admit that what they put before us in the past is wrong. But you'd trust us anyway. Marijuana's
still bad, and they've still got all of this police state, jail facilities everywhere, and most of them are filled with marijuana smokers or people that have had interactions with the law in a fines capacity or something, in a non-dangerous capacity. That's who's filling all these jails.
Yeah. So all the problems that they're putting to us, most of them are solved by bringing hemp back into the fold and making it legal and letting and that's a freedom thing. Once again, freedom is the answer. What's the question? But what they offer you is authoritarianism. Total management of your life. Shutting down industries that or making electricity more expensive and all that kind of thing. At the same time, withholding technology that could free us from that and not even have to worry about
power even.
Exactly, which would create an amazing renaissance for humanity. That's the last thing they want, because it doesn't give them control. It actually reduces their level of authority and control over us.
Well, their blueprint is the Georgia Guidestones, really, isn't it? In essence, David.
Well, yeah, that's where it leads. Is this whole population control? There's so many threads to this. There's so many dots to connect, and once you see them, come together. Once you look at all these different threads and bring them together, the population control, the Agenda 21, all this. Humanity is the problem and needs to be curbed and repressed and put back in the box. Put the genie back in the bottle that is humanity or whatever. No, humanity is not garbage, and we're not inherently
evil.
Yeah, it doesn't work like they say, the virus paradigm, like we just multiply and multiply until, we've all got a...
or like Suzuki's maggot theory.
Yeah, we've all got a square foot of Earth to stand on because there's so many of us. That's just not how it works. We're not viruses. We're not a virus. We're not rodents. We're not rabbits. We're quite distinctly different from that, and we have the capacity to find creative solutions to our problems. But I
need to do something. Can I just run this 5-minute clip here on the power of hemp and its countless uses? And it's actually a bit longer than that. And we'll get back to this conversation in about 9 minutes.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll fix myself a coffee.
Okay. This is the power of hemp and its countless uses, and we'll provide a link to this on the notes.
Hemp is an anti-fibrous plant that is grown for many uses and has been grown in our history for up to 8,000 years. Marijuana is either recreational use or the medicinal use of the psychoactive compounds in the cannabis plant. Straw hemp uses a lot of the strains that don't have the psychoactive compound THC in it at all, so absolutely useless as a drug. The history of hemp has been traced back to China to 6,000 to 8,000 BC, and it is thought of to be the first plant cultivated by man for fiber uses. From there, it can be traced in nearly every culture and every civilization, and being used from everything for sails in all the ships that sailed the earth, all the ropes. The first Bible was printed on hemp paper, was used in the building of the pyramids. Hemp moved across also through the sailing ships into the American colonies and was actually grown by George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. And people don't realize that the first drafts of the American Declaration of Independence were actually written on hemp paper. You could pay your taxes with hemp as well. Hemp is prized for its multitude of uses, and also Britain wouldn't have ruled the seas so much if they didn't have access to Russian hemp. Throughout history, hemp had a very big role in industry, but towards the sort of beginning of the 20th century, it started losing a little bit of market share to cotton, because the hemp fiber it's quite hard to get off the stalk. In 1930, a man called Slickman invented a new machine to take the fiber off hemp while it was green. The Hearst Corporation bought up the rights for this machine. They then squashed the design for this machine and ran a campaign with DuPont, who had just invented nylon, and a lot of the petrochemical industries as well, to get hemp banned because it was now competition. The history is quite involved, but when you look at the facts, there's no ways that this plant is criminalized because a part of it can be abused. It is because of the threat to major corporations and big business. When America banned hemp and put a lot of pressure on the rest of the Western world to follow suit, there was only one Western country that decided that they would continue growing, and that was France. The rest of the countries that have traditionally grown hemp have been the communist countries. You find a lot in Serbia, Hungary. Obviously, China being the world leader, they're growing by most. Since the 1990s, there's been a resurgence in the West, and Canada was the first major country that changed, and now they're growing 50,000 hectares at the moment. The UK has now got licenses, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Australia, New Zealand is looking at changing laws. The major use that most people know these days is for the textiles. The fiber of the hemp is 3 times the tensile strength of cotton, and it's a hollow fiber, so it's a lot more breathable. Wearing it, it's comfortable, it's breathable. It's the classic saying is it wears in, not out. The other uses that are coming up in France, they're developing the building industry. What they do is chip up the stalk and mix it with lime, and you actually get this, which is a hemp brick. The other product that's really big in building is the chipboard, which is lighter than wood, it's better insulating than wood, and obviously there are no trees going into it again, and it's on a sustainable basis. Big opportunity for Africa is the nutrition side of hemp. Hemp is the optimum ratio of omega fatty acids for our body, and the protein in it is globulin edistin. And globulin edistin is a very absorbable protein. Your body can digest it a lot easier than it can even the soy protein. So specifically for nutrition blocking diseases such as TB, it makes it very good porridge or supplement on a daily basis for people who are sick.
We're live.
Besides that, the oil can also be used to make fuel.
I think that's enough.
It makes a really good biodiesel. Another very important use for hemp is paper. It makes up to 4 times as much pulp per acre as trees, and obviously on a sustainable basis.
Okay, that guy really explains things quite well.
He does.
I'd recommend that you check out the rest of that. That's the power of hemp and its countless uses. It doesn't, at this stage, hasn't even talked about the medicinal aspects of cannabis and those properties, nor the countless people who like to use it for recreational. Its recreational value. It's just perfect for unwinding when one's really stressed out by family or work or a whole range of things. It's not as problematic to unwind with as alcohol, which can lead to one, then the other, and then one.
There's a whole lot of side effects, and no one's hurting anybody when they're smoking weed. It just seriously.
It just doesn't happen, does it? It's just it's an old joke in Hollywood and stuff. You don't see them. People having a token running out and beating up their spouse or
I'm getting stoned here, and I feel like going out and raping and pillaging and killing people. It just doesn't really happen. So it's amazing stuff. I mean, the nutritional value as well. He was just going into.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Actually, that's quite cutting edge. I only know a little of that myself. I've noticed. Sorry to interrupt there. Noticed just in the last week or two that people are saying quite openly and frequently now that it's more beneficial to the human to eat the cannabis rather than smoke it. And
the seeds are amazing.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and see, there's another nice little pointer to the hypocrisy and stupidity of the Australian market. They've licensed, like that guy mentioned, they have licensed to grow hemp, but only the government's allowed to do it, or a couple of selected people. And so they've grown these hemp, and they have a beautiful hemp oil product that I've been able to buy in a retail shop, and hemp seeds, and on the hemp seed product, which is reputedly the most nutritious food source on the planet, they have to put a sticker on it disclaiming that it has any nutritious value at all. In Australia, you're just really not allowed to eat it because somehow in Australia and New Zealand it becomes problematic for the human to eat. Not wonderful, but. And Australian governments care so much, of course, for their people that they're just not going to allow them to eat it. So if you want to eat hemp seeds made in Australia, you've got to take them to a country where it's legal to do so.
Yeah, and it's protectionism again. I mentioned that last episode. It is government acting on behalf of the biggest corporations who are trying to take over our food resources, and and they're regulating the small guy out of business, and hemp, hemp seed and all the rest.
And cannabis in general, that's what they're doing too with the whole prohibition game, David.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing. They're just eliminating competition.
That's
they
right.
Pump up the price with their stinking black market to the time that you can't afford to get it. You can't afford to buy it unless you're really part of the system. And then if you're part of the system, you're not allowed to have it,
Yep, and at the same time,
unless you're above the system, of course. There's that whole sector of society that's never ever mentioned by the media that is always going to be above the law.
Yeah, I mean, look at Monsanto and GMOs. We're not being protected from them. Their food is being all that these GMO companies have to do is do some in-house testing, and then hand that over to the government and say, see, it's safe. And
look at vaccines, they don't even have to do that sometimes, David.
Yeah, and I've looked at the GMO regulations under Australia and New Zealand. And they talk about if there's a novel gene in your food in a food product, that it's supposed to have a label. Now, and this is sort of reported around the place when talking about GMO regulation, that Australia has good GMO regulation, that they have mandatory labelling. But guess what, folks? I have never seen a GMO label. Like, I might have seen one on a bottle of soy sauce. Actually, no. I've only seen labelling saying that it's not GMO, and that's voluntary. So I don't see that regulation actually in effect doing what it's supposed to do, because I know that there's GMO food on the shelf in the supermarket. Most of it, in fact, is GMO if it's packaged, and they're not bothering to tell us about it.
It's interesting that harkens back to the start of the show, David, when we were talking with Andrew Snowden about his experiences there in the hospital, where he wanted to know about the food when he was in there against his will, and wanting to feed him shit that he wouldn't normally eat. He would question the feeding staff if there was any GMOs in that tucker.
They just shrug their shoulders.
They couldn't answer,
yeah.
And so he wouldn't eat it, and so they turned that around and say, "Oh, you're a bit unstable, mate. You're not eating."
Yeah, you're not accepting our food, and I've spoken to other people that have been in mental hospitals, and tell me the same. Like, one of the worst things you can do is refuse their food. They
food.
Yeah, and they take that as well part of your illness. And
well, there's only one thing worse than that, David.
Mm-hmm.
Refusing their meds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. You've just got to play ball with them according to them. Otherwise, it's part of your illness.
Well, it's just more punishment if you don't. There's just nothing around it.
Yep. So free will is a mental illness according to these guys, and which is a total nonsense. I mean, so this is the thing. You've got on the one hand, the government's supposedly there to protect us from bad corporations, which is nothing could be further from the truth, because they're completely and utterly in bed with them, which is ties into why we can't have marijuana, can't have hemp, can't have any hemp industry in this country. That video said something about them, Australia looking at changing their laws and things like that. That just goes on and on, round in circles.
30 years I've been listening to those chestnuts roll around, mate.
Yeah, exactly. All these promises. Oh, yeah, we'll look into that. And
Australia is a quarry. It's bought and sold in the interests of the usual prospects, and the usual prospects hate the idea of the abolition of prohibition, and they just allow as much gibberish and sophistry to go on in the compromised media as is possible, and the people just remain on this, addicted to hope that sometime in the near future that some government somewhere will be elected in that'll get it right, and it's just not going to happen.
No. I mean, you know, a lot of the time, those that are put up as some sort of great hope, you know, they're in the political game. They're there to compromise on things, and they're not going to get power anyway if they're in any way close to being genuine.
Oh, I say it's not going to happen, but what I mean is it's not going to happen in the present system. When the truth overcomes this tyranny, then it'll be a different ball game.
Yeah, when it becomes something that can't be ignored anymore. When you know, when
celebrities are suddenly being recorded as being healed by cannabis and nothing else of their cancers, when diplomats are being healed by their cancers and their epilepsies and so forth by cannabis, when the media does its due diligence and shows these stories to the world and lets them know that there was a patent in 1974 for the medicinal use of cannabis, when the truth comes out, people will be smoking it, and the pigs come to their door to bust them for it. They'll just say, fuck off, and they all should anyway.
Yeah, I mean, people want to give the system the benefit of the doubt. You know, they're given these empty platitudes that...
they're just programmed so much, David. All the fucking bullshit on television about these noble cops always doing the right thing and protecting, serving, la-di-la-di-la-di-la, one show after the other about only a bad apple is 98% great cops just loving their career because they're doing such fabulous stuff for the community. Never once these people, groups of animalistic thugs tasering people like I saw Australian cops do last night on YouTube. None of it, never mentioned on the awful, bullshitty cop shows that are a dime a dozen.
Yeah, that's right, and demonising drug users and drug traffickers. You know, people. I can't believe these cop shows. I mean, they're all over the Western world, especially the ones where they've got the live cam. You know, they're following actual cops around supposedly and busting people, and you know,
and then 10 minutes later talking about terrorism on the news.
Yeah, and you know, people getting their cars, tricked into getting their cars searched and things like, oh, we found some marijuana here, you know, and then busting their chops over that. I mean, yeah, it's all propaganda is designed to normalise that and you know, this is what you can expect and that kind of stuff, and you know, yeah, we've got to get tough on.
You're right too, if you did break the law. Never mind that there's so many laws that it's almost impossible not to break one.
Yeah, and so yeah, that's just justifying what they do, which is enforce prohibition, and try to paint, you know, of course, people who were you know, in the cannabis scene, you know, easily portrayed as bad people because they're forced to associate, you know, in an environment that's been criminalised. So yeah, people are
that's right, David. Instead
going to be a bit paranoid and that kind of. I think most of the paranoia from marijuana comes from you know, the fear of being caught.
It is, David. It is definitely that, because I can remember driving around in this countryside for decades with cannabis in my pocket and never caring two twits about it until I got shaken down on the side of the road on a lonely country road in this state a few years ago by an ambitious pig and another immigrant turd in uniform, and they ostensibly only stopped me to test me for alcohol, which I hadn't touched, and I passed their horrid little silly test on the side of the road, but because one of them recognised me from before, he pushed and pushed and pushed and searched and searched and searched until he found 0.03 of a gram of cannabis and busted me for that. I've been busted for 0.03 of a gram of cannabis by this fascist goddamn state.
I was in South Australia, and something similar happened to me. But I was actually in Adelaide City and rolled a cigarette for someone, and then the police came out, grabbed me, said that they had me on camera for dealing. And for rolling someone a cigarette, and so they searched me, and they found a tiny, crumb of cannabis, and luckily it's decriminalised there, and I only got a very small fine.
They still went you for it.
Oh, they still went me for it.
That's the chestnut that they use over here when they eventually come around to choosing a little location where they might decriminalise it a bit. They say they have this provision where they say it's up to the discretion of the officer whether he continues with a fine or an arrest. And let's face it, they all want to arrest. They got no discretion.
Yeah, you occasionally get a copper who realises that he can just ruin your life.
You've got the whole thing of legal,
but there's not many of them.
Officers against prohibition. You got the whole LEAP thing in that.
That's true.
There are police that understand that the whole war on drugs is just revenue raising and a rort, but they're the rare good apples. The whole chestnut of it being one bad apple, in that police force area, they're usually good, There's not. Most of the apples are stench,
Yeah, it's hard to overcome your cultural conditioning at the best of times. But if you're in a police culture which is ramped up to aggress against people's individual rights and grant
justify it.
Privileges and extra rights to police that normal people don't. It takes a special kind of cop to really rail against that and speak their mind.
Big ups there to Lee.
Absolutely, yeah. Hats off to we do a bit of cop bashing on this show, and I'd like to make it clear, this isn't everybody. We're not condemning all, but
I actually love the concept of the law, and I would like the people in the law to start adhering to it.
Yeah, and stop considering law to be
using it as a battering ram against me, and start using it for the precepts for which it was first invented.
Yeah, which is to protect, the common good and have equality under the law. So, you can't sort of grant rights to people that you don't have in the first place, and you don't have the right to control people's what people consume, to arbitrarily arrest and imprison people.
It's as simple as this. Sorry, David. It's as simple as this.
If I can't do it, a cop can't do it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that, and if there's, don't start making laws about shit where no one's been harmed.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You need to have a victim. No victim, no
bottom line here.
The bumper sticker is no victim, no crime.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's something that intrinsically makes sense. From a logical standpoint, from a moral standpoint. If you can't point to a victim, if you don't have an accuser to face, then you really don't have a violation. Really, all you're doing is breaking, the state's arbitrary rules that they've just written down, and now it's gospel. It's.
Let's face it. Coffee has been against the law at certain times in certain places over the years. Go on.
Yeah. All this little, all this sort of social engineering laws. Where the state thinks quite arbitrarily that this and that and the other is an aggression against the state, because we said it's wrong, has no basis in morality or anything. Just the fact that they've written it on a piece of paper and enough people voted on it, and now it's been gazetted and it's an act, and if you,
it's all an act, mate.
If you breach it, you're a criminal by their standards. It's nothing objective about it. Okay, well, we're off the climate change thing, and I think the hemp and climate change and all of that is linked. It's all the solutions are there, in hemp. So many of them.
Yeah, that's right. There are.
I hate to labour the point, but so many of the solutions lie there. That is arbitrarily, according to the state, a no-no. And they would much rather that they
anything but that.
Oh, they want to restrict.
That's what it's got to, hasn't it, really, Dave? That's what it's got to in these last 20 or 30 years. These horrible, sold-out pieces of shit minding the instruments of government and so forth have said, anything but hemp, anything but cannabis. You can go anywhere but that. We're never going to legalise that. But we know that they are at some point in time. But it's just going to be the day of their choosing when they're going to capriciously say, okay, you can have it now. We were wrong. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, well, they'd rather set up an economic Ponzi scheme based on trading carbon, the theoretical carbon dioxide.
Exactly.
That some again, an arbitrary construct. Something that would not happen in a free market. Like, no one's going to be, trading theoretical carbon dioxide on a stock exchange. Naturally, in a free market, it just it doesn't make any sense.
A total balloon of hot air and empty promises.
Yeah, it's not a commodity that people want. Yes, people buy carbon dioxide for various purposes, and it is a market commodity, but it ain't a market. It's not something that a whole stock exchange needs to be built for, and it's just another banking Ponzi scheme. It starts as a tax. That's to get a price fixed in. Get it in people's heads that this is what a ton of carbon dioxide is worth, and then move it over to that market mechanism, which has failed anyway in the EU. They've got that going, but the price just fell out of the bottom of it because basically the EU was handing out waivers to some groups and free carbon credits to many of the top companies, polluting companies. Here's some free vouchers to get started. And
how does the EU come to be, you?
Yeah, well,
never elected. Never one of those bureaucrats ever been elected by anyone for anything.
Yeah, and this might sound funny to people on the left or whatever, but the European Union, it's a union. Just compare, you got the Soviet Union, right? Okay, then you got the that fell. Then you got the European Union, and check the similarities, okay? Like it's basically got a Politburo at the top, a commission, European Commission, which makes all the laws and stuff, which isn't elected, by the way. It's just like
who's it accountable to then, David?
Well, it's made up of bankers and stuff. And,
it's accountable to the bankers then.
Yeah, it's not accountable.
Oh, that's all right then.
It's not really accountable to anyone. It's accountable to its.
Trust the bankers to look after our best interests.
Yeah. This is the thing. The trend we see a global banker occupation unfolding. They're appointing their own people into government. They even so-called elected officials are just being given the flick by bankers, okay, and just putting their own people in, like what happened in Greece. I mean, take a good look at Greece and what happened there. You had the Prime Minister there. I can't remember his name. He was being put in a hard position where he was facing election, but and to a great extent in the hands of the bankers anyway. But he was being forced to bring in the kind of austerity measures that would just completely.
We're never going to be popular for any leader.
Never going to be popular. So he started sort of making noises at the bankers and the EU Commission, saying, look, I want to rethink this. That's right. He wanted to put the austerity measures to a referendum to the people, and I think he lasted a week after that, and he was less than that, and he had to step down in the end. He resigned, and they put a Goldman Sachs banker in his place.
That's the way they roll.
Yeah. You don't play their game. Don't get to play politics. Life becomes dangerous for you in any case. So, this is. Basically, you've got a super state in Europe, which was brought in by stealth and through con jobs, and they didn't want. They just kept having referendums on it in countries until they got the result they wanted. Ireland, I think, I don't know how many times they went to referendum on it, but ended up being pretty much ignored, and they ended up in the fold. So anyway, how does this relate to climate change? You see a continual centralisation of political authority, and
they need a big stick.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate political lever for bringing in hardcore socialism.
Reforms.
Yeah, where, and our rights are really, our human rights are really under attack here, because on one side they'll pass legislation or charters or whatever expressing that we have human rights, and but they tend to be mixed up with the positive and negative rights get mixed up, but the point is that what happens is they use issues like climate change, any crisis they can get their hands on, and scare the crap out of you, and then tell you that the only solution is that you give up more rights. And same with 9/11 and terrorism and all of that. It's the same thing, same MO. And we're going to have to spy on everything you do, regiment your behaviour, provide carrots and sticks to influence your behaviour, to save the planet, of course. And people take that as being reasonable, because we've only got one planet.
Many of them are working for the government and just don't want to even process thoughts, contrary to the government being anything but their paymaster.
Yeah, and then there's those who went to school, got their UN curriculum, environmentalist indoctrination to.
That's right. That's how they're doing it through the children, David. They are brainwashing the children, and then they go home and tell their parents off about all their beliefs. Yeah,
absolutely. I went through that going through primary school, high school. I went to public schools, and I got the UN curriculum, and there's a heavy emphasis on environmentalism, and I'm not saying that's necessarily bad, but it was very politically driven. And looking back on it, the climate, global warming was back when it was called global warming. Back in the 80s. I've pretty much, it put me in the mentality of expecting the world to be ending in my lifetime.
It's funny how they mind control us on that one so much. They've got that going sort of endemically now with the sky's going to fall and the climate change bullshit. But they've also, it's interesting because I did another interview a couple of weeks ago now with a local friend of mine whom we'll call Dave. It's not his real name, but he was third generation Jehovah's Witness. And it was interesting listening to him talking about his childhood. He spent most of his years in primary school petrified that the world was going to end. Just absolutely not engaging because it was essentially going to, from all of his socially engineered thoughts, they were in the end times and all Armageddon was nigh.
Yeah, it's interesting the correlation there, between someone who was in a religious indoctrination.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Okay, it's a very interesting point. That they're, the end times are coming. Look around you, and all that kind of stuff, and they're getting that from a religious perspective. I went to a government school, got the same thing, basically. The style's a bit different, but the
dressed up in green uniform.
Exactly. Whether you're getting it from a religious cult or you're getting it from well, come on, let's face it, the government is the biggest religious cult. The state is no clothes. Is a superstition for one thing, and the similarities are startling, and people say, religion, has caused more deaths than blah blah. Government has caused more deaths than anything. Okay, maybe.
Time for another Google search, people. Democide, DEMOCIDE.
Yeah, please. It's really important, actually. Death by government. In the 20th century, conservatively, 270 to 280 million non-combat deaths. That's not including wars. That is government killing their own people, not killing people in other countries. Their own people in their own country. So they're the biggest threat. That's what it comes down to. Is whatever climate change might bring us, or whatever. It just pales in comparison to the destruction wrought by governments on their own people, because it is a farm type situation. You're basically being fleeced.
Animal farm type situation with the farmers being the government.
Yeah. So any threat to their racketeering, their extortion racket, it makes them very dangerous to those people. Try and ignore them for long enough. They're not going to leave you alone. So there's two kinds of people in the world, folks. There's those who want to be left alone, and there's those who won't leave you alone. People who work for the government fit in the latter category, and they're not too bloody nice about it either.
Quite often, right.
So we need to keep a cool head. Look at
definitely. This is interesting, the cool head thing, Dave, because this is sometimes when there's a fine line between standing up for your rights and being a little bit too cute with a thug who has a gun and stuff.
Yeah, you got to understand these people. Have as Andrew Snowden found out. If you this is over a tail light, by the way.
Yeah.
You've got to go check that in.
It's such a fine line, David. I mean, geez, that's it. He's just touched this damn car, and that. Oh.
Yeah. So the first thing, folks, is okay. Do your research. Don't take anything for granted. Don't take what we say for granted. Don't take. We're not sitting here dishing out article after article to convince you of the facts, right?
That's right. This is just a discussion. That's a good point, David. Actually, we could do that if we wanted to, and we
could, and
the notes and so forth. But
maybe we're being a bit selectivist there, but what we're doing is we're giving you a perspective. Go look into it yourself. Don't ever take anyone's word on face value. Everybody's got their bias and their agendas and whatever else. Our agenda is freedom, but take that for what you will. Call us names if you like, but you've got to do your own research and apply. A bit of...
You can, with a decent mind anyway, and a bit of will. That was that word again in a different context. Just English language is lovely. Hasn't that been engineered beautifully itself by the usual suspects?
Yeah, well, bring up the word anarchy, and everyone's got their own idea of what that is. But I almost don't want to use it anymore because it's so associated with chaos and stuff.
Yeah, it is. I'm very off it actually, David, because of that same thing. Yeah. Yeah,
it's like you like wearing masks and throwing lobbing Molotovs and stuff like that.
And there's that whole Pike thing too. We will use the nihilists and the anarchists.
Yeah. And a lot of communists actually consider themselves to be anarchists. They equate the two things as the same thing, or that communism is the precursor to anarchism or some nonsense like that. Yeah. Freedom doesn't have a central plan, folks. I'll just throw that in. But the thing is that anarchy. I prefer the term voluntarism. I think that's a far better description of at least where I'm coming from personally, because it ties in that whole non-aggression principle, where initiating force against people is wrong, in most situations, and better things come from that which is voluntary. People voluntarily associating with each other, choosing to interact with people to get things done rather than being coerced into it, and that stands in stark contrast to what these globalists want to bring to us as a solution to all our problems, which is social management by experts, and closly micromanaging our lives. It's the complete opposite of voluntarism. I think I'm quite confident that with the lack of authoritarian control, in a vacuum of authoritarian control, that amazing things could be accomplished, and creative solutions to all these problems can be found through people who care and have the right motivations
and attitudes,
and incentives, in a spirit of cooperation rather than coercion and holding a big stick over people and stuff. And that's what you get from the UN and central government at a federal level. They just want blanket solutions that apply to everybody. Whereas, I believe that in a big way, market forces can, are actually leading us to a better world. When people decide, what, I'm not going to give money, is wallet voting. If I decide I'm not going to give my money to, big oil, That's not a very easy one because there's a big a lot of things depend on that right now. But then there's allowing technology. This is another thing, intellectual property. I think that's a huge barrier to human progress at the moment.
Google, Tesla.
Well, yeah, all this. I'm going to go to the government and ask them if they'll let me sell this invention of mine that actually saves people a lot of money on electricity, or produces electricity cheaply, or or even free. All the different solutions. When people try to be self-sufficient and things like that, they tend to get, ordinances put against them by local government, things like that. But intellectual property. People want to commercialise their inventions and stuff like that. The problem is that when they go to the government and say, "I want to patent this," and so that I have exclusive rights over this idea.
Like they did with cannabis for medicine in 1974, but we didn't hear about it until 2012.
Yeah, if it's a disruptive technology, meaning that it's going to possibly disrupt the status quo, then the government can just turn around and say, thanks, but we're not going to approve that, and then pass it on. This is what tends to happen. They'll pass it on to some insider, friend or something, company, big oil, whoever, and they end up with the patent, and they put it on the shelf, for no one to collect dust forever. That ain't progress. Now, that's protectionism.
And that's precisely what's happened with Big Pharma for so long. Look at another term now, folks, internet search time again, iatrogenic medicine.
Yeah, what's that?
Iatrogenic, that's, I'm not quite sure of the spelling, but it'll give it to you if you get close. It's IATRAOGENIC, medicine. And that's death by doctor or misdiagnosis or medicine.
Yep. And it's sort of the second biggest killer or something like that. It's right up there. Yeah. Yeah, so they're not doing a great job, and
no, that's right. They are licensing poisons. And authorizing agents called doctors to push these things on people, and putting a ban on stuff that will actually work. What is that? What is that?
They'll make things like vaccines mandatory and not let kids go to school if they're not haven't had their full round, which is a ludicrous amount of vaccines for kids. And then or punish people for take away their tax benefits or welfare or whatever if they refuse to get vaccinated or have their kids vaccinated. So there's that on the one hand, like we're going to force this thing on you for your own good. Yet a lot of the stuff that is actually healthy, like drinking raw milk or taking cannabis cancer. All those things. You're not. There's even laws against not being on the grid. Like if you were able to make yourself self-sufficient power-wise, you've got to feed the grid, and you can't be storing that power for later use and stuff. We're all got to be hooked up to this smart grid and things like that. So
and growing lawn in your front yard, not food. And
people getting cracked down on and fined thousands of dollars for having a veggie garden in their front yard. It's getting pretty ridiculous. I think that the theme here is that you must be dependent on government help, and you must accept their help. And
or you're a bad person / terrorist, or
yeah,
they like to call it now, potential terrorist.
And any level of independence is, they've got to find a way to get at you and bring you down and bring you back into dependence mode. So, freedom is the answer. What's the question? All these authoritarian measures are destructive of society. Actually, take away from people. I think people should pick up on this pattern and stop, creating this division in their minds, this disconnect. Where on the one hand, it's like, I don't trust politicians, and I know they lie. But
I'm going down to vote, and I'm going to obey every stinking law that they push down my throat.
Yeah. And I'm going to accept, but on the other side, I'm going to accept that they know best for me, and
that's right.
they have all the answers, and I'm just a mere mortal, who doesn't have enough information, and so I'm just going to defer to.
Right, now that's one thing that is so much such a pointer to where we're at, David. In the Cold War days, the 60s and 50s, 70s at the latest, I guess. There was a lack of information. You could be educated by things like Leave It to Beaver and Goma Pile and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. That's quite an education, isn't it?
Exactly. And so now we're
Gilligan's Island.
In the age of the internet, if you've got enough intelligence and can use that internet, you can find the answers to pretty much anything.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of people putting the information out there. Again, it's not about taking people's word for it. It's about getting all the perspectives and then distilling that down and making up your own mind based on the information you have. And unfortunately, if you watch TV and that's where you get your information and that's how your reality is defined, then you're lost in the woods. Seriously, the TV lies to you, a lot. They'll mix it up with the grain, and the same with alternative media. I got to point that out. There's alternative media out there who are nothing but scaremongering. Who won't open up discussions with people on what they're what cart they're pushing, and don't take their word for it either. Like just take the information on board, apply your critical thinking to it, corroborate with other sources. And look at cause and effect. I think that's so important. Correlation is not necessarily cause and effect, okay, but cause and effect is important to us to at least try and establish. You can see symptoms of a cause, and a lot of people, and on the mainstream media, definitely focuses on symptoms, fallout from.
So does mainstream medicine, interestingly enough.
True. So, you've got to have a look at cause and effect. In history and things like that, there's a lot of false correlation on what caused something to happen, and it's an interesting thing. You just can't take things on face value. Someone provides you with an explanation for something, a grand theory. Whether it deserves more investigation or not, it shouldn't be taken on board just because you read it. It doesn't work that way.
I need to get a drink of water and that, David. I've got a nice little clip here from one of my internet mentors, Alan Watt here, which is a nice little segue. Time to take a little break.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, Alan Watt, nice.
Here we go. Just give it a bit more volume. Yes. Never watch the television.
Never watch the television. Now, I also mentioned too that a fellow that has been in touch with me for an awful long time, his brother was in the CIA, or is in the CIA. He will never talk about the CIA to him. He'll never give anything away whatsoever. He said one bit of advice. He said, never watch the television. Never watch the television. It's the greatest scientific indoctrination tool ever devised. Haven't you figured that out? It's changed the whole culture of nations, not just one nation. Why do you think it was mandatory that everybody in Britain have access to televisions by the government? Why do you think China is under the same program to everyone to TV right now? Because they love to have you entertained. Do you really think that? And India is on the same route as well right now too. And most of your ideas and your opinions and how you emulate, because you emulate things, you mimic what you see. As Charles Galton, Darwin and others have said in the past. It becomes you become it. And that's what's happened. It's been very, very, very successful. Never watch the television. You can't watch a movie unless you do it critically. If you watch it critically, not there to enjoy it. Remember what they say, it's your emotions that get you on. And it's interwoven all these emotional themes all through movies. You're played like a harp. And they embed ideas into you, along with the movies, and predictive programming too. So you accept that which is still to come. And you'll behave the same way as the characters in the movie when it comes. Oh well, what can you do? I'll just watch much music and television. You're given a mind of your own, and you've got to use it for yourself. And believe you me, if you ever had a nation or wanted a nation, you'd have to make sure that everyone took their turn. Everyone took their turn, just like jury duty, to go in and oversee the guys. They're supposed to be taking care of everything on your behalf. It's a tight club right now. It's been like that forever, because we never intended to give you anything called democracy, or, in fact, a republic. Gangs and fraternities run the systems of the countries. That's how they run. And under taxation, and it's true what Marx said, and it's true what Lenin said, but that part of it, all wealth comes from labor. And tax is another term for labor. When they take your labor from you and give you nothing back for it, that's called stealing and slavery. Slavery, folks. Slavery. But no teacher told you that, did he? Never watch the television.
No teacher told you that, did they, folks?
No. I think it's coming through your speakers there.
Oh, no, it's all right. It'll be all right in a second or two.
Yep, cool. So, you've got to maintain independent thought. It's very difficult with all this television and so forth. I just can't watch it anymore. Like, I'll hear it going on in the other room. I live with other people and they watch it, but it's nauseating to me. Especially having done my independent research and applied my critical thinking to the world more and more, even way back, long before I really sort of woke up to things. All my life I've felt that something ain't right, and this isn't natural what we're living in. It's not a natural environment, and sensing the kind of mind control that's going on, but. And usually, the signs that you pick up are, early in life are the, TV commercials and things like that are especially sort of obvious, in what they're trying to achieve and how they're trying to achieve it. And it's, to a large extent, not very well done, in my opinion. It's just an annoying repetition type stuff.
It just doesn't need to be, does it, Dave, anymore? It's just been like the frog in the boiling water thing.
Yeah, it's just this artificial trying to create a want to buy something that it's just is superfluous, like a brand of washing powder or something. They're the obvious.
Or 46 different kinds of washing powder.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly the point. Yeah, that's right. I mean, it all does the same thing. It's all made from the same stuff, but that they have to use these these techniques to get you to think of their brand over the other guy, even though it's pretty much the same stuff. So
and all the same shareholders in the end.
More or less, yeah, and. So that's the obvious stuff, but then there's the news and the way that's fed to us, and it's always
seriously.
It never seems to really inform anybody. It just sort of gives you a glimpse in time, with no context.
Sound bites and a bit of vision. I coined the word a year or two back, musicians, because they're like musicians. So they're entertainers. I mean, they've got this thing that's loosely called news, but it's more about entertainment than anything to do with information, so that people can be better informed. And so I invented the term musicians for that.
Yeah, or perception management is what it's about. It's entertainment's a part of it, but it's also about perception management and giving you your opinions on everything, so that you walk away with a whole bunch of cue cards in your head, that you flashcards that you can refer to base your opinion on, and that's dangerous. It's really dangerous to fall into that, because you just end up regurgitating what is said on television or radio, and it's not your opinion. It's been superimposed in your mind to carry that perception, and it took us into war with Iraq, folks. I mean, don't try and deny that. Sure, there were people against the war, and a lot of people against the war, but wherever I went, I was hearing a lot of regurgitation, parroting going on. Saddam's a bad guy. What?
9/11.
Yeah. Associating 9/11 with Saddam Hussein was a brilliant piece of news influenced mind control, basically, to get people to tacitly agree to a preemptive aggressive war against a country who hadn't actually done anything. They invaded Kuwait at some stage, and they got punished for that.
Well, for them going into Kuwait too, if you do the research there too, David. Did you know that? The Kuwait was actually encroaching upon Iraqi oil fields underneath.
Yeah, I did an essay about it actually. Yeah. I was in uni doing international politics, and I did an essay on Saddam, the justifications for attacking Iraq in '91, and there was a whole lot of red flags there with the US. They even months before going into Iraq, going into Kuwait, that he was given the impression diplomatically that the US didn't care two ways whether he did it or not.
Yeah, that's right. And who was the president at that time?
What, the first Iraq War?
Yeah.
Daddy Bush.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know,
War criminal Poppy Bush.
Yeah, and as time goes on, people are still, it's becoming more and more ridiculous as time goes on and more obvious. I mean, now you've got Syria, the Syrian rebels who are openly Al-Qaeda affiliated and Muslim Brotherhood,
suddenly armed to the teeth.
Armed to the teeth. It's becoming common knowledge about the chemical weapons being sold to the rebels and all this sort of stuff, and that they did the chemical attack and not the government, and or at least the evidence heavily weighs that way.
The government itself, which has kind of got a nasty reputation in some places, that seems to be well earned, I might add.
Mm.
I don't want to hold up Assad or whatever his name is as some kind of brilliant guy either. He's probably just playing a chess game as well.
Or Saddam, for that matter. But the larger point is that as we see this playbook being played again, WMD's the whole lot. The whole script is just being, it's almost like they don't have any imagination anymore, and they're just this worked last time, we're just going to do it again. So this is the thing. I think a lot of people are coming to a realization, if they're paying attention to anything at all, that they're being fed a load of bullshit, especially when it comes to war. Now, shift gears a little bit and look at the other things that they tell us about, and when you scratch the surface a bit, turns out to be bullshit.
And they always like to use the word war in it too. The war on terror, the war on drugs, the war on obesity.
Yeah, because it's the same. It's a similar program in each case. It's based on the same principles.
I call it a pogrom of the mind.
Yeah. So you've got to look at the state as, well, war being the health of the state, for one thing. I can't remember who said that, Victor Hugo, somebody, but war is, I think it was one of the Greek philosophers, actually. But whoever said it, it's true. War is the health of the state. They subsist on people feeling insecure, not being able to cope, without them, and in every way possible, our governments are, trying to increase their power through creating more fear and perceived dependence and all those things. Whether it's an external threat, an internal threat, the weather's going to get us,
Just have gone full circle, David, back to the Club of Rome, and finding that weather and climate control and these sort of things, that would fit the bill. That's the way to control these people.
Fit the bill, exactly what they said. That's a quote from the Club of Rome document. Now, we've got we've got a caller. We'll put him on.
Cool.
You're on the air with Truth. G'day, how's it going?
Hello, gentlemen. I am good.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Tennessee, in the States.
Tennessee, oh. Very cool. The home of the best whiskey in the world, apparently.
Yes, it is. Come on down.
Love to. So, what would you like to talk about?
Well, I wanted to bring the attention because this is becoming a phenomenon now. Are you familiar with the 2 million motorcycle run that went to Washington, D.C.?
Yes.
2 weeks
I'm
ago.
sorry,
Okay.
I missed the first part of that sentence.
Well, there's a new one that is coming to fruition, and that is truckers to shut down America.
Shut down the government in America?
Well, to shut down the trucking industry for a weekend, and let's see how it works. But yeah, you can get to the organization on Facebook, but it's called Truckers to Shut Down America. And I'm hoping that this will go international. Well, because it's about time we shut down the commerce. You see,
so it's like some sort of...
get to them. Well, we can't get to them because we protest. I've been doing this for 5 years, almost 6. I've not watched television in 6 years. I couldn't tell you who the latest star is. You know, what television shows are on. None of that.
Yeah, it's hard. You know, a lot of people have conversations, you know, in their social circles about TV shows and things like that. So, you know, did you see that show on the other night? Yeah, so you feel a bit isolated because, you know, they want to talk about a TV show you've got no idea about and have no interest in. But, you know, but then again...
What I'm hoping that this will go international, just like the bikers rally did. And, I mean, they were getting support from all over the world for them to attend and to be there. This one is a little bit different because it's a 3-day event. And that is, if you're in the States, even whatever country that you're in, between October the 11th and October the 13th, don't buy anything. Don't do anything. Don't comply.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
These tactics, I like these sort of tactics. If we can get enough monkeys in on it, so to speak, you know, the 100 monkeys type scenario, if we can get enough people doing it, that can really have impact.
It very much can. Could you imagine? Well, apparently, this organization, they started up on Sunday evening. Tonight, when I last checked, they had over 72,000 likes on Facebook.
Wow. Gee, that's
but
not bad.
the most interesting, yeah, and you know, I mean, that's a very short period of time to get that many likes.
Well, exactly. I know how tough it's been. Sorry, I was going to say, I know how tough it's been getting 700 likes on our website. I'm sorry, what was your name, caller?
My name is Blue, like the color, BLUE.
Oh yeah, Blue, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So, so the bikers, they're basically rallying for what exactly? What was the cause?
Well, the cause is drop the gas rates, drop the diesel rates. 2, we're sick of the government. It's our country, not yours. We make the rules, not you.
Yes, that's a good call, Blue, because it is really like the government is doing that all over the world, isn't it? It's like saying, we run this show, and whatever you think, we don't care, really. Our elections are a sham, and our media is even worse, and if you don't like it, too fucking bad because you've got no say in this.
Yeah, look, I'm interested to know to see how it would work if interactions with government were entirely optional. How much they would change the way they do things.
They'll soon become redundant.
If I had to renounce violence, you know.
Well, wouldn't it be fun if just all of the truckers that go, even if they have only 5,000 truckers show up? You see, you have to understand the Homeland Security in my country has already got involved in this. And they're telling them that they cannot go to D.C. with the empty payload.
Well,
we had a or they're going to have to drop their load.
Yeah, right. Well, we had a rally, a truckers rally on the capital in Australia, in Canberra. There was it was in defiance of or protesting the carbon tax, which they actually brought in, and they all over Australia there was a huge amount of truckers. I think it was in the order of about 5,000 or something like that. I might be inflating the numbers a bit, but they all converged on Canberra and were basically driving around the Parliament House, honking their horns and flying their flyers and all that kind of stuff in their trucks and that. Now this was brushed under the rug a bit by the media. They didn't report it very heavily, and was dismissed a lot. There were heaps and heaps of pieces in the media, playing it down, attacking them from whatever angle they could. So that was interesting. It did get put out there a lot by the alternative media, but the alternative media is pretty fledgling here in Australia. There's not much of it to speak of, and so it's. That's what went down here anyway.
What I would love to see is them just drive into DC, turn off their trucks, and walk away.
Yeah, well,
that's some serious carnage that you've got to move.
Did you ever see the movie Falling Down with Michael Douglas, Blue?
Mm-mm.
He gets out of his car at the start of the movie, and it sets up an interesting scene. But I like the idea, and I wish you all well with that there in America for some more freedom in your country, which is having its freedoms eroded by the day by another fake government. But
yeah,
I've got another caller there, David. Is that correct?
We do have another caller, and thanks a lot for your call.
Let me finish up with this.
Sure.
Let me finish up with this real quick. I thought you would get a kick out of this. This is known as a radical civil disobedience, solar-powered laundry apparatus.
A what?
What could that possibly be? It is a radical civil disobedience, solar-powered laundry drying apparatus. What could that be?
I didn't quite get the question. I'm sorry, Blue.
So what would be a
radical?
Like it? Yep.
Civil disobedience, solar-powered laundry apparatus.
Oh, laundry apparatus. Okay, the last bit. Laundry apparatus.
A solar-powered washing machine? I don't know. But that's not very disobedient.
It's a clothesline.
A what, sorry?
You hang your clothes. A clothesline.
A clothesline.
You hang your clothesline.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, the sun's an awesome thing. I mean, growing a garden in your front yard is civil disobedience in some places. So,
welcome to America.
It's about you shouldn't be having to ask permission, and I don't encourage people to feel the need to ask for permission.
Collecting rainwater can be civil disobedience in some places.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Very much so.
Okay.
In fact, in my particular studies, they're getting ready to implement that. We're fighting it like tooth and nail.
Absolutely.
But it's the rain time.
So, Blue,
I
each
know
week
you have another caller, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your call, love. We'll be talking against this tyranny every week on Illuminati Exposed Radio. Feel free to call in again anytime, Blue.
Yep, she's dropped. All right, we've got another caller. It's been on hold for a little while. How's it going there, caller? Where are you calling from?
Hello, calling from England.
England, yes. You were in Facebook saying you had a problem calling in or something?
Yeah, I did, but I've sorted that. I don't know. It kept saying deadline, but I'm through now, so that's all good.
Okay, yeah. Well, thanks for calling.
Deadline.
Sorry, I didn't hear that again.
I said you beat the deadline.
I was listening to your last caller, actually. And while she was speaking and I was on hold, I had the opportunity, because I've heard about the bikers rally, having just through sort of stuff that people post on Facebook, of course.
Yeah, I've sort of seen stuff on Facebook, but didn't know much about what was going on.
Well, from what I gather, you have to be kind of careful with these things, because from what I gather, you never know who's instigating what.
True.
And I gather this has all come from sort of as a result of 9/11, and the whole thing was 2 million bikers to join the DC ride. But does that come to Americans wanting to protect their Americanisms and their gun rights and anti-terrorism? and what's being told is terrorism, or what they've said as what is a real threat of terrorism. And you have to kind of work out whether it's subsections of the Tea Party or whoever, I
was going to say the Tea Party. It reminded me when you're talking about that of the Tea Party, and that was an interesting phenomenon where that was sort of a grassroots, I guess a Republican revival, but with a lot of leave me aloneism involved there. Trying to get some accountability in government. Fiscal responsibility was a big thing, and also their I'm not defending them, by the way, but I'm just saying that they formed a grassroots movement, which was mainly a constitutionalism and things like that was the sort of, and also a strategy of putting up anybody from the grassroots to get Republicans out who get the incumbents out. If they were incumbents, they had to,
not just Republicans.
They had to go type thing. But then it got co-opted. If I could just they then got co-opted by the Republican Party, and the new people that they put up, out of nowhere, who were grassroots in most cases, actually were just co-opted, and then it just ended up being an extension of the Republican Party. But just as a bit of a summary. I know in Australia you've just had your recent elections. You have to bear in mind that the UK and America are due to have them within the next sort of 12, 15, 18 months. So a lot of what you're seeing is exactly what you guys have just gone through, and that is a war of policies and politics, politricks, as Baz would say, and he's absolutely right.
Thanks.
I think the point in question being is it's becoming two-party races, and there's such a synergy between the two that there is no difference between. So, a vote is a wasted vote in many, many ways. So they create these what appear to be standalone, separate parties that split the vote even further. And then you end up in a situation that we're in currently in the UK, where we're in, where two parties have had to come together because nobody had the numbers. I mean, it's ironic because they call it the Condems, the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats. Condemn. Say no more.
Right.
They're taking the piss out of us, no? They're taking the piss. It's no longer liberal, it's condemning people. And it really is in full effect. Sorry, Baz, I'm speaking over you. I apologise.
No, you're not. You're making good points. And
very good points.
It's difficult because you're in England and David's in Victoria. I'm on the other side of Australia in Bunbury, Western Australia. So there's going to be a little bit of a lag from time to time,
Yeah, apologies to the listeners in that case.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing we can do what we're doing, with a home broadband connection. But politics can be characterised, simply as certainly modern politics as style over substance, and there's barely a difference between the two parties. It's just it's a case of what style of rulership you want.
What style of puppet the people will fall for next?
Yeah, it's like Pepsi, Coca-Cola. It's that kind of stuff. And
somebody bring me some water.
He's dying of thirst. I was also listening to the rest of the show where you touched upon GMO as being one of the topics, and yes, there's a big debate about the labelling and the fact it should be labelled, and I wholeheartedly agree it should be labelled. If you do a bit of research, there are hidden codes within the barcode system. Mm-hmm. And if you spend a little bit of time researching and you learn your barcodes, you can see where things have come from and whether they're GMO or not. So
in fact, sorry if I could just add to that, because that obviously sounds like hard work. That work can be made a lot easier. I believe there are iPhone apps and Android apps for your smartphone that make that a whole lot easier. Yeah, well, I'm not absolutely certain that there's an abundance of them out there, but I believe there's at least one that exists, and you can certainly get barcode scanners for your phone. And
I know, but in a way, I'm still kind of quite careful what I use my smart phone for.
Sure.
So I'd rather sort of get the knowledge and keep it in my head. But if
it's a nice little Trojan horse
approach of doing it, yeah, absolutely. And then also you moved on to the topic of, and it's another very current topic in the UK, and it's the argument over having free school meals for children in schools. Oh, hello. And
that's a big one.
Jamie Oliver's at the forefront of this. I have to say, in my experience, I approached the company that provided the school meals, and I asked them for a breakdown like you would expect on a normal food packet as to the fat content, the sugar content, etc., etc. Because if we're supposed to be making...
Sounds like you don't trust
choices,
the government.
No, I don't.
Okay. You're a smart person.
And to be honest, they wouldn't give me the information, and the school has subsequently changed provider, and I'm about to approach this one and see if I can find the information, because it turned out a lot of the food that was sourced was the same food that was sourced, and again this links to your mental health topic about food. A lot of the food suppliers for schools are the ones that are providing food for hospitals, prisons, etc., etc. Now, this is all run by economics. It's not run about the best food for the children.
Nutrition. Yeah.
Exactly. And
what it's about is
bastardized nutrition.
What it's about is once again, I think it was the first episode we did, and we talked about global fascism, okay? And we went ahead and defined fascism, and Mussolini gives a very concise definition for fascism, and he said fascism would be better called corporatism, because it's basically the merger of state and corporation. So, when people talk about food programs, and they talk about, anything, war, all the rest, what we're seeing in government is, this privatization, which is put across to us as a good thing, because, they're actually contracting to private businesses to
Absolutely.
This is all free market, they tell us, but it is absolutely not. It is fascism. When you've got a school who gets an exclusive contract, mind you,
and it's all done through tenders.
Exactly, it's through tenders. So there's going to, even if nepotism isn't involved, it's not fair, because
screening would be.
It's giving people an unfair trade advantage over everybody else. I've got a government contract. There's my cushion for my business, and I'm the incentive there is not necessarily to provide good services, especially if nepotism is involved. So, which it often is, and they're going to cut corners and cut costs and whatever, because they want to keep all the cream.
Well, in the UK, it's not so much nepotism. Well, I mean, it is nepotism, but it's an old boys school scenario.
Masonic, call it.
Yeah, that's the word.
or it's unionism or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, well,
depending.
The fact is, we've got one half of this coalition now making a big revelation at their party conference, saying they're going to give free school meals to 5 to 8-year-olds, and they do this whole thing that we're all getting fatter, and we need to have labels on all our food, so we can make informed choices. But you ask them about the school meals or the prison food or the hospital food, and they will not tell you shit. Excuse my language.
Right. No, it's okay. We're not regulated by content, but yeah, it's very scary stuff because they're talking about choices or making healthy choices. They're talking about making choices for you, and they're
not healthy ones.
And they're not, and they're the wrong decisions in a lot of cases as well. So, it'd be all well and good if they were going, we're going to, source the food from local market gardens, and we're going to make sure it's pesticide free, and we're going to, all these things that would, probably be good,
help.
May be good decisions on your behalf. But at the end of the day, you also see coinciding with this stuff, like in Illinois, in the States, and other places in America that I've heard this is going on.
Your own or?
Well, no, they're actually banning parents from packing lunches for their kids. You have to have the government
we're just close
help.
Behind then. I think we're close behind because they're looking to bring that in for 5 to 7 year olds, and they're trying to make it seem like a great policy.
That you're not we don't even trust you to feed your own children. You might have because they're basing all this sort of stuff on statistics, and they're just taking data and they're going, we have an increase in obesity and all this sort of thing among young children.
Government funded data. Sorry, Bazra, I do apologise.
That's okay.
I'm going to shut up and let you speak for a minute.
Actually, what we need to do actually is probably round the conversation off because we've done the 2 hours and we're sort of into the tail end of the broadcast.
Going over time, but we can get away with it for a while. But we've got to.
Well, no, maybe we'll just reconvene, huh?
Yeah.
No, it's a very important topic, and all of this, takeover, all this sort of, we don't trust parents, and the state has to be involved in raising children, or else.
Because we're all the village idiots.
and they're so enlightened and so well adjusted and all the rest.
And they're the champions of their idiocracy.
Yeah, even though scandal after scandal, the worst of the worst seem to be running the show. Anyway, but look at it. I think we should make a topic. In fact, we've been meaning to interview a couple of people who have a lot of knowledge about. Basically how the state is kidnapping children and things like that, and then putting them into abusive situations, and from put out of the frying pan into the fire, so to speak, with these poor children. And
too, that you might know of her too, Yvonne Stewart Taylor. Is that her name? Yvonne.
Yvonne Stewart Taylor. She's a awesome freedom fighter and really sticks up. She does a podcast called Angry Women's Podcast.
I haven't come across her yet. I'm missing out, I think.
the Angry Women's Podcast. Yeah, she's a fire breather for sure, and really batting for vulnerable people. So we want to get her on. Just for
and Dr. Rima Lebeau, I want to get her on to talk about Codex Alimentarius and the work that she's been doing recently on other aspects of health.
Yeah, which
that's
fits
another
into all
important
this as well.
subject. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, just to remind folks out there, we in the show notes there's a link to the interview we did with Andrew Snowden Friday night. And that's basically on our website for you to listen to.
Download is best.
Or download is a supplementary broadcast there. Thanks for calling in. We'll have to get you back on soon.
Absolute pleasure. No, absolute pleasure. Well done. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, thanks. We're doing what we can. We're learning as we go. There's all this radio stuff, we want to reach more people, basically.
Cool.
Absolutely. And we want to reach more people, basically.
And just please send me an inbox or something to let me know who it was, because you sound like you know me well.
Yeah, she's on Facebook. Sorry, I dropped the call, but she's on Facebook. She commented under the show post that we did that she had trouble ringing in, and yeah, you'll see her there.
Okay, cool.
I'll point it out to you anyway.
Okay.
Cool. Well, yeah, one more episode done and dusted, and yeah, we thank everyone for listening, and you know, you're the reason we do this, and yeah, keep fighting the power any way you can, and increase freedom in your personal life.
Yes, amen to that, and truth will overcome tyranny.
Truth will overcome tyranny. This has been live and direct from Australia.
Goodbye, folks.
Overcome tyranny. This has been live and direct from Australia.
Goodbye, folks.
Overcome tyranny. This has been live and direct from Australia.
Goodbye, folks.
Overcome tyranny. This has been live and direct from Australia.
Goodbye, folks.
Overcome tyranny. This has been live and direct from Australia.
Goodbye, folks.
Overcome tyranny. This has been live and direct from Australia.
Goodbye, folks.
Overcome tyranny. This has been live and direct from Australia.
Goodbye, folks.
Overcome tyranny. This has